2008, I became the first British woman to climb Manaslu at 8,163 metres. It's me at the top, but I couldn't have done it without my climbing Sherpa. This photo here is on the south side in 2009. I attempted Everest from the south side, and this is a picture of the Hillary Step, the famous Hillary Step. The last 1 hour before the summit is the most difficult part of climbing Everest on the south side. As you can see, it gets incredibly busy. Most of the clients have a climbing Sherpa to help them at this point, and after the Hillary Step, this is the final summit ridge, and the top is just here. Sherpas are one of the ethnic groups of Nepal, and not all climbing Sherpas are from the Sherpa tribe, but the name has become synonymous with climbing. So I'm just going to use that term as a generalisation. Okay. In 1916, Alexandra Kellis presented a paper at the Royal Geographical Society, and that paper was all about the Sherpas and their ability to carry loads, their strength in the mountains. Alexandra Kellis did a lot of exploration in the Pakistan Karakorums, in the Indian Himalaya and in the Nepal Himalaya, and had used lots of porters, guides from different ethnic groups, and he realised that the Sherpas were some of the strongest. In the early expeditions of the 1921, 22, 24 Everest expeditions, a lot of the high altitude porters were Sherpas from Darjeeling. In the early expeditions, the Sherpas were more usually used to carry loads and were called high altitude porters, and they carried loads. They didn't usually get much of a chance to climb to the summit. They didn't have much climbing ability, had never seen a pair of crampons before, but they carried loads to very high altitudes. In the 1953 expedition, Tenzing made the name of Sherpa very famous. He reached the summit with Hillary as a climber. But still, during the 1953 expedition, the people who carried the loads to very high altitudes were called high altitude porters. And this is the only surviving high altitude porter from the 1953 expedition. He's called Ang Kerber. He's 81 now. Local people know who he is and what he achieved, but very few Westerners will ever know this man, will ever see this man. He still lives a very simple life in Namche Bazaar, which is the Sherpa capital, and he carried loads up to the South Col in 1953 and is the only high altitude porter left alive. Between the 50s and 60s, 70s, Nepalese started to learn to climb. Tenzing opened a climbing school in Darjeeling, the Himalayan Mountaineering Institute, which gave the Sherpas then, Nepalese Indians, chance to learn to climb. And they became parts of the expedition and got to reach the summits. But still in the 70s, climbers were still trying to summit alone, and the Sherpas were carrying loads for them. Not many got a chance to summit. And it wasn't until the 1990s, when commercial expeditions started to become popular, that climbing Sherpas then came into their own. Commercial expeditions came about so as to take people to the summits of mountains, and maybe they needed a little bit of help. They weren't professional climbers, but they had an ambition to stand on the top of a summit, and they need a little bit of help. So the job of climbing Sherpa then became very important. And most of the companies who run commercial expeditions offer a climbing Sherpa. Everest, of course, is the big one, although there are commercial expeditions on other 8,000 metre peaks, but Everest is the star at the top. So there was lots of jobs available for climbing Sherpas. Nowadays, this year in 2013, I just led an expedition to the North Col of Everest from the Tibet side. There were 10 expeditions on the north side and 44 expeditions on the south side. Probably 1,500 climbers on the south side, each with one climbing Sherpa. 90, 100 climbers on the north side, each with one climbing Sherpa. So a lot of jobs. Sherpas saw it as a way to earn money. They could earn more in a season, an Everest season, than they could in 2-3 years working with trekking groups. It's a dangerous job. It's high risk, but the rewards are high. Some of the Sherpas love to climb. They enjoy it, but the majority do it to earn money, to look after their family, to build a house, to educate their kids. A lot of them don't want their kids working as climbing Sherpas. They want their kids to be doctors, teachers, lawyers, anything but a climbing Sherpa. But they do risk their lives. Most of the clients who travel with commercial climbing companies could not carry the loads up the mountains themselves. The Sherpas arrive at base camp about 2 weeks before the group arrive. They spend a couple of weeks levelling the ground. The ground at base camp, especially on the south side, is very rocky. It has to be levelled. They have to build dining tents, kitchen tents, put the tents up for the clients, get everything ready. Once the clients arrive, the climbing Sherpas then set off and start stocking the higher camps. So Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4 on the south side. On the north side, Advanced Base Camp, and then Camp 1 on the North Col, 2 and 3. They have to carry up the tents, fuel, stoves, oxygen, anything the group will need. Some of the commercial companies will offer a service where even your sleeping bag is carried up the mountain and your mattress. So they're up and down, obviously well acclimatised by now. But often the groups are waiting in base camp for days and days at a time, even weeks at a time, waiting for the weather. At that point, the climbing Sherpas are still carrying the loads up and down, up and down. When it comes to summit day, your climbing Sherpa will be with you all the time. If you start to fumble with your Jumar, the fixed ropes, your safety, your Sherpa will be there. The expedition that I just led to the North Col of Everest, we were 9 clients plus myself and 4 climbing Sherpas on summit day. A lot of us needed help at times, just to unclip, help clip Jumar on, safety on. The Sherpas are always there. They do risk their lives, they do a fantastic job. Many people climb Everest, they think it's going to change their lives, and it does, it changes a lot of lives. People summit Everest, they may write a book, there's the film, there's motivational speaking, and it will change a lot of people's lives. But a lot of people go home and forget the help they got. They couldn't have done it without the climbing Sherpas. And sometimes it would be nice when they're doing the motivational speaking to acknowledge that help. Remember, whatever you do in this life, there was probably someone behind you helping you. And it's nice if that person is acknowledged.
Thank you.